hitting the fan. I've heard that ring sound of shit hitting fan for the last year, but now everybody sees it. Now everyone sees it, and that's the problem. Bought silver. Did you buy silver from me? I don't remember you buying silver from me. If you had listened to me, you would have called that number. Oh, you did call that number. Keith, the blue collar man. I've only got a few Keiths. As far as clients, I mean. Aha! Yes, I remember. Now I remember. Charles, how are you? Good evening. One of my YouTubers. Outstanding, man. I'm glad you did. That was a while ago. Oh, you've made a lot of money. I like that. I like it when my people make money. That is a good thing. Arizona Government Retiree Fund benefiting from UAE Alfalfa Farm. What? Get the fuck out of here. Well, thank you, man. I appreciate that, Keith. By the way, I'm going to repeat what I just said in case any of you didn't quite catch what I just said. Arizona Government Retiree Fund benefiting from UAE Alfalfa Farm. I guess Saudi Arabia's not the only game in town. There are others asking us to please pick up that soap. We'll just stand behind you in case you start to fall. Motherfucker. In 2012, the city of Phoenix sold the farm, which it bought years before for water rights. The listed owner is Arizona Valley Farm LLC, which is controlled by U.S. Farm Realty Trust II LP, of which the Arizona State Retirement System is a major investor. By getting old. That's it. Like literally, I just study everything. I'm what's called a polymath. So I don't study one thing. Like I do have, like I've got, my one thing that I'm really interested in, which is like sort of crypto archaeology, like the archaeology of way before anybody else studied, what was possible. Like, civilizations that we may not know anything about, that kind of thing. Like, it's very old stuff. And that's kind of my fun thing. But when it comes to like learning about everything, well, you know what? I guess shit. One of the things is there was a time in my life when I was young when somebody that I trusted would say something, and I go, yeah, that's exactly what it is. And then I tell other people because my memory's good, and I go, I heard this, and then every once in a while somebody would go, yeah, that's not true. I'll give you one example. Okay, I read Atlas Shrugged, and I was like, yeah, fuck yeah. Government sucks, man. There should never be any regulation of any fucking kind. Like regulation strangles the smart man, the creative man's ability to really do all of the things that civilization should be doing. And a couple of my friends were like, yeah, man, that was a good fucking book. And then I talked to a guy who is super fucking liberal, socialist guy, a DSA type. And I don't discount anybody's opinion until I've heard it. So he and I were sipping coffee one night at a Denny's in the middle of the night and just rapping about stuff. There was like 20 of us sitting together, bunch of us all sitting together. And he was sitting across from me and he said, "What are you reading lately?" I said, "Oh, I just read Atlas Shrugged." He goes, "What do you think?" I said, "Well, I think it's a fucking great book." And he goes, "Really?" And I said, "Yeah, absolutely. I totally see where Ayn Rand was going with that. I mean, there shouldn't be any government regulation. I mean, in a world where there's no government regulation and you can allow the people, the titans of industry to do what they're capable of, then I just think it would be a better world." And he goes, "So can we agree that the richest people that you've ever met," and he knew that I'd been around Beverly Hills quite a bit my whole life, and he goes, "Can we agree that some of the richest men you've ever met were assholes?" And I said, "Well, yeah, definitely." And he goes, "And selfish?" And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "Opinionated?" And I said, "Oh, incredibly." And he goes, "So we should let the most self-centered, selfish, mean-spirited sons of bitches in the world run the world? I wonder how long the environment would last." And I went, "Oh shit, I hadn't thought about that." And he goes, "Yeah, these are the guys who would be dumping toxic shit right into rivers, and they wouldn't be worried about the bullshit of, oh, it's toxic waste. You've got to put it in a 55-gallon drum and you have to store it. And then fuck that. Pour it in the lake, man. Not our problem. Like, we manufacture here, but we don't live here. We live up on top of the hill in the rich neighborhood. Let the colored people have to deal with this." Sounds harsh, but that's the way that a lot of these very wealthy people think. I mean, do we not have the case law to prove it? Look at Monsanto. Look at DuPont dumping Teflon into the Ohio River. What? This toxic shit that it's forever chemicals. Once you get them in your system never gets rid of them. They cause 9 different kinds of cancer. Yeah, DuPont knew that, and they dumped it in the river anyway. Those are the people who should not have anybody regulating them. And I went, whoa. Well, why would Ayn Rand be so fucking opinionated like that? And he said, well, maybe because her father was very anti-communist. And when she grew up in whatever country it was, Eastern Europe, and the communists came and took her father away, she dedicated her life to hating communism and to doing everything she could to disrupt or destroy communism or socialism in any form. And I went, oh shit. And he goes, yeah, I mean, look, bottom line is, it's just that's the way people are. You kill somebody's entire family, they're probably going to be anti whatever you were. Unfortunately, she was also a pretty good writer. And apparently, Alan Greenspan's lover when he was in college and one of her disciples. And I went, what? Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me if she ended up on welfare. And it would be the ultimate irony. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, is it's just so sad. It's just so sad that one person can influence so many hundreds of thousands of people. But there's one of those things where I learned a lot from that. Because I was like, okay, maybe this whole Republican ideology of no government is good government needs to be tempered. But how? And then I thought, well, okay, socialism seems to work really well in places like Sweden and Norway. So I talked to a guy who is what did he study? Sociology. And I said, how do you figure that works there? And, unemployment and those benefits don't even work here. Like, everybody that I know complains about some fat black woman in Detroit having 14 kids and living off of welfare for her entire life and never even trying to have a job, which is what I heard. I mean, that's what people that I talked to were afraid of. And he said, well, you hit the nail on the head. Black. And I said, what do you mean? And he said, well, that's the problem with socialism in our country. Socialism works when it's a homogenous society and it's a high trust society where everybody believes you when you say you need help. But because of the racial problems here, because of the divide, because of the cultural differences, we don't have a high trust society. So we can't have socialism here because the people who work hard and pay into the socialism will always want to make sure that nobody's taking advantage of them. And if they think that anyone is taking advantage of them, they'll start trying to figure out ways to cheat the system. Well, the problem is, is the fire department socialist? Yeah. We all pay in and we all pay for the same group of guys and they go to a house. They don't ask who paid into the system before they go to the house. They just go to the house. Poor person, rich person, doesn't matter. They put the goddamn fire out. That's socialist. But in a very limited sense, it works extremely well. So what about Social Security? Well, it's either here's the problem. It's either the problem is either laziness or the perception of laziness. Either one will destroy the system. Now, in this country, we have a real problem. And it's not just laziness, it is outright, in your face, in the open contempt. For what? Well, for the people who built the country. That's it. When it comes to the railroads, it's like, oh, well, who built the railroads? Well, a lot of Chinese immigrants worked on the railroads. Okay. So they pounded the stakes into the ground. They set the rails, they set the railroad ties. Who built the railroads? Oh, well, capitalism paid for it, right? And a bunch of wealthy industrialists laid out a plan, bought up land, did all the planning, laid out all the engineering that would have to go into setting down two steel posts horizontally on the ground from one coast to the other. That's a lot of fucking steel right there. Yeah, okay, but what about through valleys and what about over ravines and what about through mountains? And did black slaves plan all of that? No. Did they actually do the measurements to figure out if two people start on opposite sides of a mountain, how to meet exactly in the middle? No. Well, who did that? Oh, a bunch of white guys with diplomas and slide rules. Oh, okay. Well, it may be the most diverse country in the world, but that's not what makes it great. That's absolutely not what makes it great. I mean, let's be honest. I'm tired of dancing around and pretending. I'm tired of pretending. I don't want to pretend anymore. It's just so exhausting to try to remember all of the social lies and the social camouflage that we have to go through in order to be accepted and not be stereotyped as racist or sexist or whatever. It's like, oh, a woman can be a Navy SEAL. Bullshit. Just bullshit. Look, are there a few women on Earth that are strong enough and capable enough to become Navy SEALs? Yep. Absolutely. will their bodies begin to break down 50 or 75% faster than the other people on her team that are men? Fucking A, they will. Her shoulders are smaller, her hips are bigger, her legs are stronger, and her upper body's weaker. Period. Fucking end of story. That's genetic. That's not me being sexist. That's just the reality. The WNBA just said that they're tired of people hacking on transsexuals and blah, 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 and there's no such thing as a man or a woman. And a bunch of guys that are in the NBA said, okay, I'm trans. I'm declaring myself open for the draft for the WNBA next year. Oh, okay. Well, WNBA, you opened this fucking can. You opened this can of ass whoop. You fucking close it. You literally called the artillery in on yourself. Yeah. You're the one that said broken arrow, danger close, motherfuckers. Drop it on me. Drop it on my signal. Okay. Well, we're all so fucking tired of the bullshit lies that there's a bunch of women out there that are 7 fucking feet tall that can run a fucking 4.940, and they have big testicles, and they're not cutting them off, but they are going to play in the WNBA next year. Let's just see how that works. I think that Caitlin Clark will still probably score some points because she's just the most badass chick I've ever seen. And yes, I'd marry her in a heartbeat just because our kids would be the greatest athletes that ever walked. What a joke. Yeah. I mean, it's sad. The WNBA has decided that there is no such thing as a woman. So now they're going to have to deal with guys that are literally first round draft choices for the NBA showing up. Weird glass. Brother, that's a jar. I may not be in Alabama, but we still drink out of jars in Arizona. I may not be a Mason, but I can drink out of a Mason jar. No other country in the world has the diversity the U.S. faces, which makes our issues harder. I don't know, man. I don't know. There's a lot of diversity in a lot of countries. You'd be surprised. Doing it for publicity. So, oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. That's the problem is, you know, they were beating on one of the players that said something about a man and a woman, and they were like, oh my God, she's a conservative, she must be a Republican. And all the, you know, it seems like 90% of the athletes that are in the WNBA are black and gay. They're black lesbians, and they hate Caitlin Clark. Why? Because she's white, straight, and she can play basketball really well. Well, you're not allowed to do that. You got to be gay, black, and play okay. No, sorry. So, but you know, it's exhausting to have to pretend to play this game of, oh yeah, black and white is exactly the same, and slaves were the reason that America is great, and our diversity is our strength, and there's no such thing as gender. It's a construct of blah, 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 blah. Just tired of it, man. Tired of it. Black people are a problem in the United States. Fucking huge problem. Absolutely enormous fucking problem in the United States. Doesn't mean all black people are bad. Some fucking badass black people out there. There's some amazing black women that have done things. The woman who wrote all the codes for NASA going to the moon. I mean, Jesus, she didn't even get recognized as being part of that. But you know what? She's fucking awesome and got a brain the size of fucking Texas on her. But I'm tired of pretending like that's the norm. I'm tired of pretending like my buddy, Gregory Alexander, Popeye, you know, yeah, you know, was he from a shitty part of Harlem? Yes, he was. Was he black? Yup. Was he the coolest motherfucker I've ever met? He could play 10 instruments, sang like Smokey fucking Robinson. He was 6'6" and super handsome and just mellow as fuck. Never had a bad word to say about anybody. And I'd seen him in some bad situations, financially, breaking up with a girl where she just shit on him. And dude never, ever got down. He was just, and it's not because he was stupid or naive. It's because mentally he was tough as fuck. And he just chose to be optimistic. I mean, the guy was a great example of what it means to be a man's man. Just a cool dude, always lit up a room with a smile. But is he the example that I would say is the majority of young black men in America? I don't know. I assume that there's probably a lot of young black guys that are going to Harvard or going to MIT or getting their MBAs or getting a PhD in something. But what I see is that everybody who's afraid to walk down an alley at night is afraid because of young black men. What tribe am I from? Come on, I want to lay you. I'm Hawaiian, which is way better than the tribe next to us, which was the Hakalugi tribe. Ugh, these guys were gross. Never invite them over for dinner. So, it's sad because when you talk about stuff like this, people just have to label you. But, what if, hypothetically, what if I'm just trying to make this country better? What if that's the case? What if it's like, I'm sick of Democrats. I'm sick of Republicans. I'm sick of the tribal bullshit. I'm sick of everybody having to pick a side. And everybody's side is not on their own side. It's like, what? How can everybody vote against their own best interests? They just do. And, part of it is that old saying that hard times make for tough men and tough men make for good times. But good times make for weak men and weak men make for hard times. And, in the 90s, all of those boomers who were, they were the last best hope of the United States to overthrow the military industrial complex and the CIA and all their dirty scheming bullshit that they started in the 50s, and how all those military industrial fucking turds were just starting wars everywhere and just, running around the world killing innocent people. And a bunch of hippies got together and said, no, we're not going to do that. And they came this close with all the marches in Washington and everything else. And then one day they just sold out. They just gave up. They just gave up. They all got haircuts, started snorting coke, became attorneys, and went to Wall Street. They literally became the system that they were complaining about. And then this one asshole, who, by the way, has since said that he regrets it more than any other single thing in his life. And trust me, he's got a lot to regret, because I know his story. I grew up in the same town as him. This one guy did this fucking soliloquy. He did this soliloquy in a movie called Wall Street. And he talked about how greed is good. And every selfish, self-centered, shithead boomer went, yeah, that's what I think. Yeah, greed is good. You know what? Yeah, that's me. Okay, I'm in. I want to be that. What the hell? Like, really? One guy, and by the way, he has said publicly that he wishes to God he had never given that speech, because the entire country was just looking for a reason. And boy, that was it. That's all they needed. Yep. That's it. Let's just do it. Fuck it. We don't care about anybody but ourselves. So I got to grow up with those folks being in charge. And look, Clinton, Trump, same era, same group. Yeah, but that's the thing, man. That's like saying, oh, the Marine Corps, lost all those battles because they were tricked. When you go into battle, you either win the battle or you lose the battle. You can make all the excuses you want, but it doesn't matter. You lost, and that's the problem. I know exactly what happened. I was there when Charlie Manson and his family killed all those people. I remember. It was 1969. I lived at 1425 North Stanley Avenue in Hollywood. Base of the Hollywood Hills. Sharon Tate, right up above me. Yep, heard my parents talking about it. Now, of course, my dad working at UCLA, at the Neuropsychiatric Institute, working for the lead researcher in MK Ultra. He didn't talk too much about it. Yeah, Manson was from Ohio. I believe that. All you people in Ohio are all the same. Every fucking one of you. You're all Charlie Mansons. Just kidding. I don't know why him being from Ohio matters. He was from the CIA. That's what matters. Charlie Manson was a product of the CIA. Guaranteed. I guarantee you he was a product of the CIA. And of course, he didn't have to kill anyone. That's the beautiful thing about MK Ultra. MK Ultra was a program designed to make Manchurian candidates. No, he was not a nut. He acted like a nut. He acted like he was crazy. What's up there, FLA? What proof do you have? Well, let's see. If you read the book Chaos, which I've read twice, I don't read books twice. I don't need to. I read it twice. And I'll give you an example. Fingerprints of the Gods was the only other book I've read twice. And that was written back in 1994. And I read it in 1994. And then I read it in about 2014, about 20 years after I read it the first time, just to refresh. But when Chaos came out, I read it twice the same year. And the reason was when I read about Dr. Jolly West, it shook me, because Dr. Joylin West was my doctor. That was my therapist as a child. And I went to him because I had what they called back then acute hyperkinesis. Now they just call it ADHD. But back then it was acute hyperkinesis. And so my dad, who worked for him, went from being a Navy SEAL to being an engineer at the Neuropsychiatric Institute. An engineer? It never even occurred to me. My dad was an engineer, but he never went to college. An engineer? You're not an engineer, but I never even thought about it. There's a homeless guy in front of 1425. Oh, you're kidding. Oh my God, that's fucking awesome. That is so Hollywood. That is so fucking Hollywood. So yeah, my dad worked there, and he was worried because, I was in this mentally gifted minor program where, they sent they had a special school for us. It was a normal elementary school, but they had a special class for these genius kids that they put us all in the same class together. And I had to go across fucking town to go. The elementary school that I was going to was just a normal elementary school. They didn't have this program for kid geniuses. So I had to literally walk about a mile through Hollywood down Sunset Boulevard at 9 years old. I had to walk down there to past the donut shop, which I stopped at every morning. And then I got picked up on a bus from another elementary school and bused to this other place way the fuck across town. Anyway, bottom line is I went to UCLA all the time. And then I also went to Dr. West's house. And he and his wife would have my dad and I over, and she was very nice. He was very nice. Misinformation. I just got a restriction for misinformation? Okay, misinformation. I'm trying to think about what could possibly have triggered that. Race issues are learned. You mean learned? Mason comments? I don't know. But yeah, I mean, maybe. That's weird though, because in the book Chaos, he says that he doesn't have a direct connection, but that he found out that Dr. West, who, by the way, knew Charlie Manson. Weird, right? Yeah, before he came to UCLA, he was up in San Francisco, where Charlie Manson was, where he got started. And they knew each other. Well, that's really strange. No, of course, we're not racist by birth. We're racist by experience. That's it. And it's not racism. It's called noticing patterns. And we all do it. We all do it. If you don't notice patterns, you don't survive very long. I don't know anything about the meeting. I just know that I heard something about they might start their own party, which is a suicide run, but whatever. Yeah, bigotry is learned for sure. Yeah, I guess they pick out certain words. So here's the thing. This is what I know that apparently the guy who wrote the book Chaos doesn't know. When Dr. West wrote to Sidney Gottlieb, the head of the overarching program, he worked for the CIA, research and development of all kinds of weapons and poisons and shit. When Dr. West wrote to him and said, "I've got it. I've done it. I've been able to pull out true memories and implant false memories that the patients believe are real." Wow. So how did he do that though? Well, he said he did it through a form of hypnosis with the addition of LSD. Huh. Well, now why would that work? Okay, let me back up and I'll explain. In hypnosis, you can't make somebody do something that they are morally or ethically not inclined to do. So I can't just go to somebody and say, Here, look at my watch. Okay, you're hypnotized. Okay, I want you to go kill that guy. No, no, I can't. That's what they'd say. I don't have any reason to kill him. That's murder. I can't. Unless, of course, you happen to hypnotize a psychopath or a sociopath. But the reality is that you can't just hypnotize somebody and expect them to do whatever you want. It doesn't work that way. Now, and that's because they have filters. Their filters are all of the experiences that they've built up over the years that they have used to decide right and wrong. Okay. We all have different filters. They're all slightly different, even within the context of our society. Everybody has a little bit of a different filter. So I'll give you an example. What is completely natural and normal to somebody from New York might seem a little odd to somebody from San Diego. Completely different society, really. I mean, yeah, we all speak English, sort of, but our habits and our the things that we do, our the predilections of like what we like, pizza dough, everything. It's different. And that's normal. That's perfectly normal. But my point is that we all, because of our different experiences, you can have two people who grew up in the same household, but because their perception's different, they wire themselves differently. One might think that because dad is, drunk and aggressive, that becoming the opposite of that, because he doesn't like the way his dad treats him, being the opposite of that is desirable, and therefore that's what you need to do to be a good father. The other brother may say, I'm not going to be somebody's punching bag for the rest of my life, and I want to teach my children how to be tough the way my dad's teaching me how to be tough. I'm going to be just like him. Two completely opposite results. But here's my point. What they believe, what they feel is right or wrong, their filters are different. And if you want to know if you have filters, the next time you're fighting with your husband or your wife or your significant other, see if you don't do this. When you say something, you automatically know what they're going to say. You know what they're going to say. And you probably even know why they're going to say it. Oh God, she's just like her mom because she always says this, or she always does that, or, oh fuck, I can't believe I let a fucking potato peel fall in the sink. She's going to lecture me about the goddamn garbage disposal not being equipped to fucking take potato, blah, 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 blah. I already know how this is going to turn out. Those are your filters. So we have 5 different times. I won't say, yeah. So those are your filters. You already know what she's going to say, what you're going to say, what he's going to say, what you're going to say back, and then this is going to happen, and that's going to happen. You're almost always wrong. Fucking arguments never go exactly the way you think, but you know how they are. You know what to expect. You walk into an alley, and let's say that you see 5 black men in this kind of dark alley, halfway down the alley. What do you think? What's your first reaction? Well, there's not enough context. Just the color of their skin, that's not enough context. So let me give you some more context. They're all wearing really nice suits, ties. They've got on, Brooks Brothers suits with their London Fog overcoats, and they're joking about the final score of the football game or whatever, and how the so and so from the office is going to be just completely pissed off tomorrow, and we'll have to just work around the fact that this loss spoiled his or her whole week. They're all in their 40s to 50s, a little bit of gray hair, good-looking guys with suits on. Does it matter that they're black at all? No, not even a little bit. They're clearly businessmen. So you make your decision based on your filters: suit, tie, clean cut. I can hear that, they're laughing, they're in a good mood. They're okay. This is not a threat. Yeah, they're Wall Street pros. Okay, they're not a threat to me. Now, if they were all, dressed like gangbangers and their pants were hanging off their ass and they all had big puffy jackets on, even though it's summertime and it's 85 degrees outside and they're still wearing big puffy jackets, it's like, okay, I wonder what they're fucking strapped with, because clearly they're wearing those jackets to hide something. And, they look like gangbangers. Yeah, at that point, you're going to be a little bit nervous. So those are your filters. Here's my point. You can't just hypnotize those filters away. Those filters are buried deep in your subconscious mind. Here's where it gets interesting. All of the drugs that people seem to enjoy so much that are spiritual enlightenment drugs, like DMT, like ecstasy, like Molly, like MDMA, which is basically the same thing, LSD, mushrooms. All of these psychedelic drugs have one thing in common. I'll give you an example. If you're on ecstasy and somebody says something to you, what you hear is exactly what they said. No judgment. No judgment at all. What do you mean? Well, if they say, look, I think that there are times where I can feel that you don't like me and you're rude to me, and that's why I am standoffish with you. You go, oh, okay. Do I do that? Maybe I do that. Okay. Well, then this would be why this happens. Okay, that's logical. And you say to them, you may be right. If that's the case, then that's not my intention, and let me apologize. What? Yeah, that's why they call it the love drug. Because it gets rid of all your defensive bullshit filters where you're like, no, bro, that's not true. No, you actually consider what they're saying because your filters are gone. So you actually hear what's being said, not what you think it means. Well, that's pretty fucking cool. Yeah, that's why they give ecstasy, MDMA, to Marines for PTSD. That's why they give mushrooms to Marines for PTSD. That's why they microdose Marines with PTSD, because then they can go through the exact same talk therapy, except it's literally the same amount of good as a year's worth, because they're not filtering out what you're saying. They're literally hearing what's being said and they're accepting it. Okay, so now we know that we can get rid of people's filters by dosing them with LSD or with DMT, although DMT, enough of DMT and you're just it's like a slingshot. Your soul leaves your body. You are out in the ether. I don't think anything could affect you at that point because you're not there. You're gone. But with something like LSD or mushrooms, you're there. So what if you combine that with hypnotherapy? Because we know that with hypnotherapy, you can't make somebody do something that they're morally, ethically, etc., opposed to. But morals and ethics are filters. So what if you got rid of the filters? Then you hypnotize them. And then you program them. Well, now that's a whole different story. Now, what everybody knows about Charlie Manson is that he gave lots of LSD to all of the people in his family. The family members out there at Spawn Ranch took LSD every day, sometimes multiple times. They were constantly taking LSD. That's something that is documented. That was in the book Chaos. It's been in every documentary, even Bugliosi's book in whatever that piece of shit was, Helter Skelter, completely made up, by the way. That is the worst true crime book ever written, in my opinion. So what if you were able to put somebody on these drugs and then hypnotize them? Well, then those filters wouldn't stop them from doing anything. They would just carry out the instructions the way that they were told to. Wow. Okay. Could you do that with one single hypnotherapy session? There are people who say that you could. I don't know. I've been hypnotized many times, and I know that changing the way you feel about something that's deep set can take a little while. But do I think that it's impossible? No. There are probably hypnotherapists out there that are so good that it could be done in one session. But that's irrelevant, because if Charlie Manson could do it, if hypothetically he were able to hypnotize them, then he had all the time in the world. They were at the ranch on LSD every day. And he was already in a position of power. Now, the one thing that's missing, of course, is any proof that Charlie Manson knew anything at all about hypnotherapy. Bugliosi never said a word about it. Even in the book Chaos, I didn't read anything about Charlie Manson being a trained hypnotherapist. Well, I'm looking up a movie because I wanted to. Well, let me turn that off. Oops. There we go. Got to turn that off. Okay. Oh, I've been hypnotized for all kinds of things. Smoking. I don't smoke anymore. For eating fucking tons of candy every day. Don't do that anymore. Spy Kids. Let's see. Danny Trujillo. Interesting story about Danny Trujillo, the actor, the Mexican guy who looks so beat up and tough. Yeah, Machete. Exactly. No, he was more than just a classic cult leader. Here's the interesting part. I was watching an interview on a podcast with Danny Trujillo. And the guy said, hey, I know it's part of your story, so I just wanted to include it. You actually went to jail. You were in prison, right? He goes, yeah. Yep, it's part of my life, man. It was, glad I straightened my shit out. But yes, I did. I did go to jail. And he goes, I heard this crazy rumor that while you were in jail, you actually met Charlie Manson. And Danny Trujillo goes, yep, actually, that's a true story. I don't know where you heard that, but yeah, I did meet him. And he goes, so did you just like talk to him one time, or did he get beat up a lot? And he goes, oh, no. Nobody touched Charlie. We made sure of that. And he was like, you made sure of that? Why is that? And he goes, because Charlie was interesting. He said that he could hypnotize us. At that point, this fucking podcast had 100% of my attention. I went, what the fuck did he just say? Hypnosis? He said that Charlie told us that he could hypnotize us and make us absolutely believe and feel like we were on heroin, like we had just literally done smack. And Danny Trujillo and his buddies were like, show us. And he said it was the most amazing thing because this little dude, because Charlie Manson was like 5'4", he said this little dude started talking to us, and he said literally we got so fucking high that we dumped, which means he puked. Just like you do sometimes when you do heroin. You get nauseous and you throw up. I've heard that. So Danny Trujillo is saying that Charlie would literally go into their cell and do hypnosis for them so well that they would throw up and feel like they were on heroin. Oh, well, now there's a little piece of interesting information. That's the missing piece of information. That's the piece that nobody seems to understand. He didn't just have access to a bunch of young people. He had access to a bunch of young people and an unlimited amount of LSD. And the motherfucker was a hypnotherapist. Well, I'll be dag-nabbed. Now that's the perfect recipe for making murderers. But where did he learn this? Gee, I wonder. Because I can tell you, again, there is absolute proof that he was in the exact same place, the same office as Jolly West for quite a while, for months. Could they have taught him how to hypnotize people? Could he have been part of MK Ultra? You bet your ass he was. And why would he be a part of MK Ultra? And why would they want to stop the whole hippie thing? Why would they want to do that? Well, very simple. They accidentally started it. They thought that by giving LSD to somebody, it would work as a truth serum and that they could dose Russians with it and they would just blabber. They didn't realize, it's not that easy. But what they did do was they got the original makers of LSD to give them literally pounds and pounds, hundreds of pounds of it. Well, if a milligram is enough to get you high, what the fuck is 100 pounds for? They gave it to universities all over the country. Where do you think Timothy Leary got it? He got it from the fucking CIA. They were giving it to people and saying, hey, test this out. Give this to people, take it yourself, give it to others, see what it does. Like, figure out what this shit does. Well, okay, they did. And then what happened? The CIA started the fucking hippie movement. Yeah. On accident. They started this whole sexual revolution, free love, dope, and sex, and everybody's partying, everybody's on acid, it's all love. And unfortunately, it quickly devolved into LSD and a lot of fucking speed. And the speed was nasty and it just fucked people up. But strangely enough, my father just happened to be in San Francisco with me when I was a couple of years old, and which would have been the same time that Charlie Manson was there. And then strangely enough, my dad and I moved to LA, right outside of UCLA, where my dad went to work, and we lived in the Hollywood Hills. And he was an engineer, even though he didn't have a high school diploma. But he did work as a former Navy SEAL, as an engineer. He was working for Dr. West because he did work at the Neuropsychiatric Institute. And so my dad was part of the problem, not part of the solution. But what happened was when the peace, not war thing really took off, what happened was the CIA realized, like, oh shit, we really let the genie out of the bottle here. How do we put the genie back in the bottle? You don't. Okay. Smash the bottle. That's what they came up with was we have to do something because this hippie movement is really gaining ground fast. Like there's a lot of middle class people who are very conservative. Yeah, they're from the greatest generation. They're not baby boomers. They're the people who are grown-ups now, not a bunch of teenagers and a bunch of college kids. And they look at the hippies with a little bit of disdain, the women mostly, and the men look at all the braless teenage girls running around and go, damn, that's pretty fun, actually, you know? But nobody really thinks of them as bad. Well, the CIA realized, like, we have to fix that right now. And so they took a bunch of hippies and they made them the most insidious, terrifying demons they could possibly imagine. And they scared the fucking shit out of Hollywood and the music industry. And as a very famous actor once said, the day after the Manson murders, you could hear tons of drugs being flushed down toilets all over the Hollywood Hills. Everybody realized, like, okay, I don't want to be a part of this anymore. I don't want to be associated with this. Charlie Manson did something great for the CIA. He ended the hippie culture. They weren't just dirty hippies with hairy armpits anymore. Now they were murderers and they were scary and dangerous. Yep, that is literally what happened. Well, yeah, of course it was long before the 60s, but it took until the 60s before it reached street level. You know, a bunch of researchers at universities and a lot of very, very intelligent, very intellectual people were doing LSD in the late 50s, including a lot of very famous actors and actresses, a lot of philosophers and great thinkers. And, you know, I believe it was Cary Grant, like, what? LSD? Are you shitting me? Yeah, Cary Grant said that it was the greatest moment of enlightenment of his entire life. A lot of people said that. LSD was the shit, man. Now, by the time I was old enough to do it, my dad had scared the fucking crap out of me about it, obviously. I don't have to tell you why. He fucking worked for MK Ultra. So by the time that program got shut down, and he explained to me, he sat me down and he said, look, son, if you want to smoke pot, I think it's stupid. I think that if you smoke pot, you're going to sit around and do nothing and you're going to be lazy and you know, it's just not a good thing. However, I don't think it'll hurt you either. You're thinking of Rock Hudson, by the way, not Cary Grant. Yeah, exactly. So, you know, he explained to me that, look, it's not going to hurt you. It's just I think it's going to make you fat and lazy. It's going to take the edge off. And I said, okay, I understand that. And I still smoked it anyway. And he told me, look, if you want to smoke it, just the first time you smoke it, just make sure you smoke it here at the house with me. And I was like, oh God, you got to be kidding me. So of course my buddies talked me into it and I did it and it was okay. The first time I was just, I thought it was kind of fun, whatever. I got to a point where I just couldn't stand it anymore. I just didn't like it. It's not my thing. But he said to me, listen, you got to promise me you'll be very, very careful about chemicals. And I said, what do you mean? He said, if it's a chemical, you have to be very careful, like acid. He said, please don't fuck around with acid. And I said, really? Why not? He said, because it's going to be one of two things. It's either going to be fun, and it's going to be like spiritual experience. You might have a bad trip and have a little bit of a bummer time, but he goes, the reality is this. There are people who do acid and it's not what they thought it was, or it's too much or whatever, and they don't come back. They're never right again. And if you want to take that chance just to have a little fun, it's not worth it. I was like, okay, acid. Fair enough. I won't do it. And he said, cocaine is just absolute fucking poison. He said, it's just poison. And I said, okay, fair enough. It's chemical poison. That's it. So I never bothered. I never did. And he never said anything about mushrooms. So I did that and absolutely loved it. You know, later on in life, not when I was in high school, but later on. And, you know, it was a hell of a spiritual experience. It really was pretty cool, actually. So I don't recommend it for kids. Obviously, you know, I think your brain should be fully formed before you go messing around with something like that. But, you know, if you're a grown up, what about sugar? Yeah, I put a little in my coffee this morning. I don't feel a buzz. Right. O'Neill didn't. That's my whole point there, Drakami. Jesus Christ. My whole point was he didn't establish it. I did. Because the one thing he didn't know in that book was he didn't know that Manson was a hypnotist. It's not anywhere in the book that I remember. So he just thought that, okay, well, he's getting these kids to do LSD, but what does that mean? Well, if he's getting them to do LSD and he was really well trained in hypnosis, that's a big deal. Now, does he talk to Danny Trejo in any of the book Chaos? I don't remember anything. In the book Chaos, is Danny Trejo interviewed at all? No, I didn't think so. Yeah, you see? Holy shit. He crossed paths with Manson in around 1961. Holy shit. Manson could hypnotize people that well in 61? Wow. Wow. That's nuts. Wow. That's interesting. So anyway, there you go. No, I didn't really. I was interested because the Manson murders obviously happened when I lived in the Hollywood Hills as a little kid. You know, I was really young, but still, you know, it's something that happened while I was there. And I remember finding out about it afterwards and going, what kind of evil is this? Like, what is this? This is hard to even imagine. So, you know, it's one of those things that, no, Charlie Manson was in and out of prison his whole life, literally since he was like 11, 12 years old. By the time he committed the murders, he had spent more than half of his life in jail or prison. And then, of course, spent the rest of his life. So, you know, 90% of his life was spent in prison. Yeah, pretty hardcore. Yeah. When you can hear your parents talking about it and talking about whether or not they should start locking the windows at night, you know, because we never closed our windows. I remember that. The reason I remember is because I remember complaining to my dad that the crickets were so fucking loud. And he explained to me that as long as I could hear crickets, I was safe. I was like, what? And he said, yeah. Crickets can feel vibrations. And so if anybody's outside moving around, you'll know instantly. because the crickets will stop making noise. And I went, oh. He goes, so as long as you can hear crickets, there's nobody outside, you're safe. And I remember thinking to myself, okay, that's cool. I'll remember that. And I did the rest of my life. Right. So, didn't the military experiment with hallucinogens in Vietnam? I think so. Who knows? I mean, look, man, they drove around fucking, was it St. Louis? They drove around St. Louis spraying a fog of something that was highly carcinogenic and toxic. And they just made sure that they sprayed it mostly in black neighborhoods, but it was all low income people. So, poor white people are the same as black people to the CIA. It's like, well, it's just, they're just chattel. It's like, they're not humans. So they drove around and they sprayed this shit for years. They did for years. Why? I guess they were trying to see what the outcome would be. Who knows? It's really pathetic. But that's what the CIA does. That's what the military industrial complex does. You have to understand that the point of the CIA, what these people do for a living, is they are professional liars. That's what they do. Well, no, they're in intelligence. Cut the bullshit. They're professional liars. They're spies. It's a spy agency. Spies lie. It's what they do for a fucking living. Period. Okay, so anybody who believes the CIA or believes that the CIA should even exist, stupid. Yeah, Sandoz, right? By the way, Jergami, I know you're trying to help, but I already know all this. As a matter of fact, it was the scientist who created it actually went home after he accidentally made it, lysergic dithylamide, and he ate a sandwich. And when he licked his fingers, he noted a sweet taste. He then went back to work, and on his bicycle ride back to work, he started to notice the most amazing display of colors. He said that by the time he got back to his office, he was having the most profound spiritual experience of his life. And of course, when he finally sobered up, he realized, like, what the fuck? How'd I get so high? What happened? And he realized, oh, okay, what was I touching? Oh, I was touching that stuff. Yeah. Now, you can also get something similar to that from the mold off of wheat bread. Wheat, when it molds a certain way, will have something very, very close to that. And basically what Hoffman had was just a chemical version of it. But I found his documentation, exactly, ergot. So I found his documentation to be quite humorous. He must have been a pretty studly dude, because a lot of people, if they have an experience with LSD that they're not aware of ahead of time, it destroys their life. Like, they are never, ever right again, because when you're sitting somewhere talking to somebody and all of a sudden their face morphs into a candle and you look at the door and it's the fucking Niagara Falls, like, I see it. I smell the waterfall. His face is on fire. He's a candle. What the fuck? And this is all so real to you that it is literally devastating, because it's like, okay, can I ever trust my eyes again? Can I trust my mind again? This is all real, but I know it's not real. It's a psychotic break, but it's not. It's acid. So if you're told ahead of time, if somebody says to you, hey, we're going to do this, you're going to have some profound experiences, then usually what happens about 70% of the time, according to the numbers, is that you will have a profound spiritual experience. Some people say it's the most profound spiritual experience of their lives. A lot of people say that they actually feel the presence of God. Hey, you know what? I'm not going to shit on their experience because I wasn't there. Now, enough people have said that it does start to make you kind of wonder, like, are they all full of shit, or is this as my hippie friend said it, once you visit the Hall of the Mountain King, there's no going back. But that's what happened with me. I mean, the first time I did, was it? I guess it was MDMA. I remember the next day I just remember thinking, I feel calm. I just feel, what is this? And what it was a lack of anxiety. I had slept with a loaded 45 under my pillow pretty much my entire adult life. I used to joke that I was the only guy who left the Marine Corps with less PTSD than he went in with. Because when I went in, it was really bad. And when I got out, it wasn't as bad. But I still made sure that, I had one in the pipe. And the safety's on. That should be good enough because, I know what this is and I know I'm not going to mess with it. So I would fall asleep with my hand under my pillow, just touching the grip of my 45, of my 1911, just touching it. I didn't have to hold on to the, just touching it, making sure that it's there so that I could slide my hand up on it if I needed to. And that's just the way I slept. Yeah, that was normal. That's just normal. And I remember after that experience, it was just a little different. And I don't know why. And it's like, well, it wasn't about being afraid. It's about being prepared to be extremely, extremely violent in what you believe to be an extremely violent world. I was raised by a guy who believed in extreme violence, and he raised me to be extremely violent. That's the way I was raised. I've never lifted my hand to a woman. I've never even spanked my own kids. I got 5 of them. Never spanked one of them. I don't yell at them. My kids will tell you I don't yell. And the reason is that monster that was created is specifically designed for one purpose and one purpose only. And that is for truly evil people. Not because you're upset. Guys who yell and scream at their girlfriends and they punch holes in the wall in order to show dominance, and that's wild insecurity. Should never have to do that. I've never ever yelled. And the reason I don't is because, look, if we're friends, let's figure it out. We'll figure it out. We'll talk it out. If we can't, we'll be grown-ups about it, and we'll decide that this is something that, like, this is the hill that our friendship dies on. And we may not be friends anymore, but I don't hate you. I don't agree with you on something that's very important to me, whatever it is. So I'll give you an example. If I had one of my Jewish friends come to me and go, look, man, I'm sorry, but I can't pretend like that you're human. I can't pretend like you're one of us. You're not Jewish, and therefore you're not one of us. I love you. Think you're an awesome guy, but you're not a human. I'd be like, okay, well, and if me not being Jewish means I'm not human, then I guess we can't be friends. Or why would I be friends with somebody who doesn't consider me a human being? It's not something most Jews think about because most Jews don't even read the Talmud. They never have. Hell, they don't even read the Torah. I mean, they might read some of it. It's like, oh yeah, I browsed the Septuagint once. Oh, okay. So yeah, that's good for them. But did they read the Talmud, and do they now think that because I am a Gentile, I'm not human? No. Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Religious extremism is a bore to you because you don't have to deal with it. I would, and that's the key. It's like if you're in the Marine Corps, who do you think they're going to send you out to dispatch? Probably not going to be a bunch of Buddhist monks. So, there's two types of people in the world that you can't be friends with. Orthodox Jews and Orthodox Muslims. Period. Their holy books say you have to be killed at some point. They say that in very clear language. And, again, it's just like all the other bullshit in the United States right now where we're not allowed to tell the truth. Well, Orthodox just means like somebody who's very extremely religious, fanatical about it. Kevin Nash. I don't know who that is. I don't know, man. That'd be weird to see anybody attack monks. It's like there's certain rules that are universal, and one of them is that why does it say the radical left? Because he's like P.T. Barnum of the Barnum and Bailey Circus. He's just a circus act. He's like every other circus act. They're all circus acts now. That's all they are. And what's so radical about it? About the left? Not much. There's a few people. That's called self-immolation. And it doesn't happen very often, but it has happened a couple times. The bottom line is that there's a lot of people out there who pretend that being a radical Muslim is not dangerous, that being a radical Jew is not dangerous, that being a radical Christian is not dangerous. The problem, of course, that I have with radical Christian is that if you're a radical Christian, that means that you are Amish. Let's be honest. That's a radical Christian. Pennsylvania Dutch is a fairly radical Christian. The Amish are the most radical. That's what it means to be a radical Christian. It means to be radically nonviolent, radically nonviolent, to be radically forgiving. That's what that means. Yeah. So when people say, well, if you're a fundamentalist, hardcore Christian, what's that mean? Well, that means that you're Amish. That means that do they have some dogma that I think is silly? Yeah. Come on, boys. Black and white, really? You're not going to celebrate all the beautiful colors God gave us? Why? Well, because it's don't show off. It's your ego. That's feeding your ego to show off. Okay, but monks aren't showing off when they wear orange. They just believe that that is a color that demonstrates love and purity and kindness. So, what about orange? What about blue? I like blue. Blue's everybody's favorite color, you know? So, or yellow's nice. Well, nice little butterscotch yellow. But no, they have a dogma about nope, we wear black and white. Okay, you know what? If you can explain why, if you can explain why, other than this something stupid like because God said so. Okay, I, that doesn't make any sense. So, give you an example. Why do you not wear colorful clothes? Well, we believe that Jesus would want us to be not mundane, but what's the word? Humble. And so we don't have egos, and we believe that dressing in fashionable clothes is feeding your ego. Oh, okay. So you just want to be plain. Good point. Okay. All right, I can see that. Why do you not use electricity? Well, because we want to live as humbly as possible. And so we don't choose to take on all of the new technology because technology to us could lead you astray, could cloud your judgment, could make things that are important secondary. Okay. Nonviolence, pacifism, yeah, forgiveness. So that's a radical Christian. What's a radical Muslim? Well, a radical Muslim is somebody who has to go out and conquer. Well, conquer? How? Well, you conquer by violence. You tell people, convert to my religion, or I will kill you. Well, do you always have to kill them? Well, eventually, yeah. I mean, you can initially just make them second class citizens and they'll live in your city and you will tax the shit out of them and you'll make sure that they understand that they don't have any of the rights that Muslims do. You can't sue a Muslim. They're Christians. Whatever. Okay, so you're going to come over and tell me that this is the way I have to live or else? Yeah, or else we'll kill you. Okay, well, then that makes us enemies. Okay, so be it. That's literally the way Islam is. Okay. You don't want to convert? Die. Now, you think that's the worst? That's not the worst. In Judaism, they don't even want you to convert. No, we're not going to tell you to convert or die. We're just going to tell you to serve us and then die. Says in the Talmud, even the best Gentile should be put to death. That's a quote. I've studied it. I know. So when you take a radical Christian like the Amish and you compare it to a radical Haredi Jew who calls for the murder or enslavement of all of mankind, and the Greater Israel Project, where they have to push everybody away from them so they can have the land that God told them can only be theirs. And they will rip down a Christian village just as fast as a Muslim village because it's all the same to them. We're not human beings. It is very specific in the Talmud that we have a different soul than a Jew. The Jewish person has the soul of a human being, a divine soul. We don't. We never will. We're not Jewish. Okay. You want to be friends? No, no, they don't want to be friends. So what do you want from me? We want to use your military might. We want to use your country. We want to have you kill people for us because we don't want to actually fight Muslims. Why not? Because if we directly fight all of the Muslims, we'll actually get fucking destroyed. There's 2 billion Muslims in the world, and there's 15 million Jews. 50? No, 15. Oh. Well, why so few? Because we don't like anybody and nobody likes us. And we've gotten kicked out of 109 countries since the temple was destroyed. By you, USA. What? What? Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. We are Rome. We are the new manifestation of the country that destroyed Israel. We destroyed the temple. We destroyed the sacrifices. We tore down the holiest of holies. And we took it from what it used to be and we turned it into what it is now, rabbinic Judaism. Rabbinic Judaism, what the fuck is that? That didn't exist 3,000 years ago. Nope. Did it exist 2,000 years ago? In the year 26? No. When did that start? Well, in 79 AD, or 74, 79, I think, AD, the temple was destroyed by the Romans. Yeah. Well, they couldn't make sacrifices anymore, right? So they had to shift the power from the temple to the rabbis. So now the rabbis are the voice of God. Oh. So that's new. Yeah. Oh. So is it really the same Israel, same Jews? No, not even a little bit. It's a bunch of people from Europe who converted to Judaism. Converted. Yep, they converted. What were they before? You don't want to know. You don't want to know what they were before. No. Yeah. And now they hate us. They hate us because they ain't us. Anyway. All right, guys. Well, that's enough for me for tonight because I can smell pizza. I hope it's pizza. Because if it's not pizza, it means my teenage son is fucking around in the kitchen. And God, that would be a disaster. Trust me. All right, guys. Take it easy. I'll see you tomorrow. Oh, guys, over here. All right, Charles. Were you affected by the storms today? No, that was yesterday, right? Did we have storms today? Holy shit, I missed the storms. Unbelievable. Reardon Metals for the win. Reardon Metals. Oh, right, Reardon. I was like, I don't know. Is that like where you get gold and silver? No, that's Reardon from Ayn Rand. That's a while back. All right, guys, take it easy.